Good afternoon and welcome to the Monday Show via the Everything is Black and White podcast. I am Andrew Musgrove, and for the final time, I'm joined by Aaron Stokes. Yes, you heard that right, ladies and gents. After more than 150 shows and countless more outside of that title, hundreds of thousands of downloads and views, and trips to Dortmund and Wembley twice, and a cup win, thankfully, the Monday Show, at least in this form, has come to its final show as Aaron sadly hangs up his mic.
Oh yeah, 150 shows. Wow, it has not felt like that. Yeah, look, this is certainly my last show as part of the Monday Show team. God, yeah, it's starting to feel real now. Now that you've announced it.
Aaron sadly leaves us. His final game will be on Saturday.
Yeah,
Aston Villa away. He'll be covering that game, and then he bids Reach and the Chronicle farewell after 3.5 years.
Yeah, 3.5 years at the Chronicle, 8 years in total as part of the Reach team. And yeah, leaving at the same time as potentially one of Newcastle United's biggest superstars. I don't know which will be a bigger miss to the North East, really, me on this podcast or potentially Alexander Isak. But no, I've loved my time at the Chronicle, love my time on this podcast, love my time working with yourself, and obviously all the viewers and listeners. So yeah, we better make this a good one.
Yeah, we'll try and go out on a high. I'm not sure what's going to happen to the Monday Show going forward. I haven't had time to really think of a plan, but we'll come up with something. And as Aaron said there, I'm not really sure which is the biggest loss. Alexander Isak to Newcastle United or Aaron to the award-winning Monday Show and Everything is Black and White podcast.
I think given Alexander Isak's current standing with Newcastle United supporters, anybody listening or watching now will definitely say I'll be the bigger miss.
Yeah, most certainly. And we got loads of people in the comments here. Well, Graham says that's sad. Good luck to you, Aaron. Wireman says you will be a miss. Les says thanks for the 150, Aaron. We wish you the best in everything you do. Geordie Tune for Life says, where are my tissues? So there's some tears rolling. And if you stick until the end, there might be some more to come. We will try and go out on a high. Sadly, not on a victory. Newcastle United getting through pre-season without managing to win a single game, 6 matches, no wins. You said 2 weeks ago now, I think it was, wasn't it, the last time we had a Monday Show live, that you weren't too concerned about the results because it's all about getting fitness into the bodies and minutes into the legs. But 6 games, no victories. It's kind of concerning, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's not ideal, and I think Newcastle United would have loved certainly to have picked up at least one win from the 2 games that they had over the weekend at St James's Park. Certainly that Espanyol game, who were obviously significantly lesser opposition than Atletico Madrid. They obviously came very close to beating Espanyol, but I must admit, I think I was probably more inspired and happy with the performance that they put in against Atletico, certainly in the first half. I thought Friday's game was a little bit drab. Certainly looked like a friendly. But as we'll go on to talk about later in the show, I think we probably saw most of the starters in that game on Saturday. Of course, you would have liked to see them win. We would have liked to see them win 6 of 6. But I think, look, it's all on Villa now. And I think they're probably in okay shape going into the first game.
Do you think inside the group, Alexander Isak, chaos and drama aside, the feeling's still good? Or do you think they'll be looking at the 6 games they've played and thinking, I really would have liked to have won one of those games? I mean, of course you want to pick up victories, but in terms of the I guess, confidence, but just the general mood within the squad.
Yeah, look, Eddie Howe was asked about this on Friday when we first got the chance to speak to him for the first time since Asia. And a question was put to him, look, has this unsettled the group? And his response was, look, ultimately it will in some ways because, this is a huge member of our squad not playing. The players around the training ground have clearly felt that, but Howe did stress that he felt like he hadn't seen any change in output on the pitch or in training from the players, and very much while it was hanging around the club in the background and it was probably being talked about in the changing room, he doesn't think it's affected the current players who are in training from their work on the pitch, which is all you can ask.
It would be very easy for Eddie Howe and Bruno Gomes or whoever comes out and speaks after a game to say, we are distracted by what's going on in the background. But I don't think many fans, and I don't think Eddie Howe is the kind of manager to allow that, because really, if that is the case, then I don't think your squad's kind of built for the competitive nature of the Premier League, to put it bluntly. So I don't think there's a direct correlation. Obviously, not having your best striker in the team, one of your best players in the team, will impact you not knowing whether he's going to be here come the close of the window, will impact the mood slightly. But I think overall, it's just been one of those summers. And look, no one remembers preseason, do they?
No.
You know, they pick up a win against Aston Villa, Espanyol and Atletico Madrid, results in performances. We wouldn't have been talking about them. I was at the game on Saturday. I took my little girl to her first. She lasted 45 minutes. And then she started getting bored and wanted to run down the concourse. We had to leave. And we left, and as we got outside, there was it wasn't a big cheer, there was kind of a groan. Because Madrid had scored. So maybe she was the lucky charm, but she enjoyed the first half. I sent you a video, didn't I? And she was clapping the players' announcements.
Yeah.
Harvey Barnes, nothing.
Yeah.
Every other player aside Harvey Barnes got a big
clap. Yeah.
Anthony Elanga especially.
He got the biggest of all, didn't he? Him and Tonali at the start.
But nothing for Harvey Barnes, which is strange because I love Harvey Barnes. But hey, anyway, but on Anthony Elanga, I was impressed with what I saw on Saturday. I thought the end product wasn't quite there, but that speed and the want to take on a fullback is what we've been crying out for, really. I know Jacob Murphy did very well last season, but he's rapid down that wing, and the fullback was having a torrid time of it, and the balls were coming in, and maybe it was kind of a mixture, I think, of that natural striker knowing how to run the lines and channels. No disrespect to Anthony Gordon, and again, it's pre-season, but definitely the speed down the flanks. I was so impressed.
Yeah, as I say, I thought all the football we saw at St James's Park this weekend, the first 45 minutes against Atletico Madrid were by far the best from Newcastle point of view, and Anthony Elanga was central to pretty much everything that Newcastle did in that opening 45 minutes. As you say, I thought he was very, very confident on the ball. We saw that pace that we've all been hearing so much about. Didn't look overawed by the occasion. There was a sense of excitement when he got the ball among the fans. You thought, okay, he's going to look to do something here. And I certainly think, this is why Eddie Howe wants these players in early, because Anthony Elanga's had now he's had all 6 games, hasn't he? Because he played at Celtic. He's had 4 weeks. He's had 6 games to really get used to his teammates. And look, it's early days, but I think you've got to be excited by how he started.
Most certainly. So I thought the relationship between him and Trippier, kind of down that flank, was really interesting. Obviously, we've seen Trippier do that with Miggy as well, to a slight degree, to Jacob Murphy. And it's going to be interesting to see who starts against Villa on Saturday, because I actually think Kieran Trippier has looked younger, if that is possible. I think he's had a decent enough pre-season. Will it be him at right back and Tino Livramento at left back, or do you think Lewis Hall has a chance to come in between Tino and Trippier for right back?
I suspect it will be Trippier right back, Tino Livramento left back, purely because we saw Lewis Hall come off at half-time on Friday night. That was a pre-planned change. Eddie Howe was always going to do it. It wasn't as if he's picked up a knock. But clearly Lewis Hall isn't at the fitness levels Newcastle United think he is, or think he should be at start. We know he's only been back a couple of games, obviously, from that foot injury. They're going to nurse him back, just like they have done with Sven Botman. Newcastle United said it was pre-planned on Friday for Lewis Hall to come off at 45 minutes, but there was a moment when he was heading down the tunnel at half-time, and one of the fitness coaches said, "Lewis, you need to stay out and do your runs on the pitch because you're coming off." Lewis Hall didn't look happy about it. Now, he did. He was doing a sprint at half-time, but I suspect there was maybe a want from Lewis Hall to stay out on that pitch. Eddie Howe doesn't think him or Botman are ready yet for 90 minutes. That's understandable given how soon they've been back from injury. So I think we go Trippier right back and Tino left back from Saturday.
From what I saw on Saturday, because it was Botman and Lascelles, wasn't it? I thought Botman, he looked okay.
Yeah.
He looks like someone who's had a bit of a hard time with injuries, but I thought he looked like he was getting back to his good old self. But it was funny on Friday because the club made a point about it being a pre-planned change, and sometimes you think, I get why you're writing that.
They did the same on Saturday with Botman. It was they've made a point in their tweet at halftime saying this is planned.
That doesn't really help.
Do not worry. Yeah.
Sometimes it has the opposite effect that you actually want. Just before we continue, a reminder this episode is sponsored by NORD VPN. Sign up for a discounted offer. You can click the link in the podcast description box. And essentially, if you're going abroad, if you're going on holiday, but you want to catch up with all your UK shows, you can change your location and keep up to date with all your UK streaming services. Obviously, you have to have the relevant subscriptions aside. But it's great as well to use in this country if you're on the train or the bus and you connect it to their Wi-Fi. Offers that element of protection and security, so no one can get in and steal your data. And when you're abroad as well, if you need your eSIM, go to Saily. from the creators of NORD VPN. Again, discounted offer in our podcast description box. You can stay connected wherever you go. 200 destinations to choose from, affordable price and secure. One app, downloaded, boom, you support the podcast and you get all the benefits from it as well. And with NORD VPN, there's no risk because there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So do hit the link in the podcast description box. One thing that is clear, Aaron, from Newcastle's 2 friendlies over the weekend is that the squad depth just isn't there.
Yeah.
You've had Matt Targett and you've had Harrison Ashby in midfield. Surely that's just got to be for the occasion and not a short-term answer to the lack of depth, right?
Yeah, Eddie Howe did say over the weekend that both those players in those positions were because of the depth. And I think he made a point of saying that at the end. He said they're obviously stretched in midfield. No Sean Longstaff, who's gone to Leeds. No Joe Willock for the next couple of weeks. So they are essentially down to 4 first-team central midfielders. We saw Alfie Harrison come off the bench in both games and play in a central role. Good for him to get some minutes. He obviously had a hand in the second goal for Newcastle on Friday night by some good pressing. But look, on the face of it, Matt Targett, I couldn't believe my eyes on Friday night seeing Matt Targett in an attacking, essentially number 10 position at times. Good goal from him, Shearer-like header. And then Harrison Ashby went one better on Saturday and actually looked really, really at home in the middle of the park. Eddie Howe says he's been training in that position, but he hasn't really played there for Newcastle or the under-21s or when he's been out on loan. Now, I'm not saying by any means Harrison Ashby is the answer to Newcastle's midfield problems or the lack of depth, but for a player who's essentially been forgotten about on Tyneside, I think he did really, really well on Saturday. He was one of the standouts in that game against Atletico.
He's clearly trying to take the opportunity that's been presented to him, but if we're being honest, there's probably more a chance to get himself in the shop window than it is to have a future on Tyneside under Eddie Howe. And yeah, great to see Matt Targett get on the score sheet, but again, you just have to scratch your head and think, this is Champions League Newcastle United, and we're playing Matt Targett in midfield in the penultimate preseason friendly before the Premier League campaign kicks off.
Yeah, and obviously we're playing Matt Targett in that position which is obviously, worrying because it's not his natural position, but at the same time that they're trying to obviously get a defender over the line and 2 strikers. The last thing they need at the minute is obviously trying to fill holes in midfield. But I think with each passing week, that certainly the feeling around the club or from outside the club is that Newcastle really do need to go and find a central midfielder. I don't think any of the youngsters who have been playing in those positions in pre-season have really done enough to step up. Alfie Harrison being one.
Does that include Louis Miley?
No. I mean,
from the reserve.
Yeah, so from the under-21s who have came up to essentially be number 6 in that squad behind Willock and Miley. So I think I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple of weeks if we see Newcastle really go out and try and sign a central midfielder as well as all those other positions they need to fill.
Because a lot of people were impressed with Lewis Miley on Friday.
Really good on Friday night.
Looks like he's filled out a little bit, which is good for him. He wants more game time. He's probably going to get it because the depth isn't there. A lot of people put him ahead of Joe Willock in the pecking order. I certainly do. I think he should have more minutes towards the end of last season. It's been a big summer for him. What has he done in this preseason? Now, I mean, look, it's hard to say, has he done enough to displace Joelinton, Bruno and Tonali when they are as good as they are? But has he done enough to ask questions?
Look, he's had a very good preseason. He's a very good player. He should 100% have earned more minutes last season than he did. And I think personally, from his point of view, he'll be really pushing for that this season because we know there's been interest in his signature from elsewhere. I don't think on the balance of play across the last 4 or 5 weeks that we've seen enough from Miley. But look, it's arguably an impossible task really for all of those 3, for any of those 3 to be dislodged, given how well they play together, given how good players they are. So no, I don't think Lewis Miley is going to come in above the 3 of them, but he's got to earn more game time this season. He's got to be above Joe Willock in the pecking order. But he was very good on Friday. Really, really good on Friday night.
Looking forward to seeing more of him. One man who said it was a big summer for and hasn't really played that many minutes is Alex Murphy. Eddie, I was asked about him over the weekend. What did he have to say about Aaron, and what do you think the future holds for Alex Murphy?
So Alex Murphy came off the bench for Sven Botman on Saturday afternoon at half-time, and Eddie Howe said the loan spell last season was absolutely pivotal. He needed that exposure to match action. He's come back for pre-season and done well. Been thrown into some very challenging games and has always come out with credit. Let us see what is next.
What is next?
What is next? Well, it's a tricky one on Alex Murphy, because for all we've just been talking about the midfield being really stretched and sparse, actually now with Malick Thiaw coming in at centre-back, which we're going to talk about, they've actually got a lot of sentinel defensive options. Thiaw's going to come in alongside Cher, Byrne, Botman, Lascelles and Kraft, arguably. And then Alex Murphy is probably, seventh now in the pecking order. I suspect he might go out on loan again. But certainly of all the youngsters that we've talked about when we've seen in pre-season, he's certainly the one where you think, okay, there is probably a future at the club from.
Even if he goes out on loan?
Yeah, because he's still young enough. He's only 20. And I think the only thing you don't want to happen is for him to go out on loan and then go out on loan again. Because then he starts to become, someone like a Joe White or a JT Nakouk, and you just think the time might pass him by. But there's nothing to say that if he goes out this season on loan, which again, he might not, but I think he will, and has an Elliot Anderson at Bristol Rovers type loan spell, there's absolutely no reason that he can't grow into a player who can play at Newcastle in the future.
But then you look at the left back position, you've got Lewis Hall working back to full fitness. Tino probably starting there, like we said, against Aston Villa. You've got Dan Burn who can fill in there, Matt Targett, but everybody would like to see Matt Targett moved on this summer. Dan Burn will be battling quite rightly against Sven Botman for that centre-back position. Do you not see Alex Murphy filling in for Lewis Hall or battling Lewis Hall and Tino Livramento for that spot? Or do you see Matt Targett staying and being the third choice, and then Murphy would come in behind him, hence why you probably send them out on loan to get him some game time?
Oh, I think Matt Targett probably holds the key then, because I think if Targett stays at the club, and again, look, I think if you were asking me right now, will he still go? Suspect he will probably be one of those they try to move on. But if that interest doesn't emerge from him, it's hard to see Murphy really going above Targett in the pecking order, purely because of Targett's Premier League experience, purely because of the fact how clearly rates him more or trusts him more at this stage of their careers. So yeah, look, Murphy could stay, but I suspect, gun to my head, I think he probably leaves on loan.
Has to be a championship loan or a top division in Europe, doesn't it? We don't want to see him heading back into League One. Let's get him a proper team, some proper first team football, because there is a player there. You watch him; he is a good player. Just needs more exposure to a first team. If it's not going to be this season at Newcastle, then it needs to be a championship side for the next 12 months or so. Up top, we saw Anthony Gordon playing in that central role, and I thought he looked up for it. He looked full of energy, full of running, but to me, it was like watching Callum Wilson coming back from injury, simply because every time he sprinted after a ball, I had to watch with my eyes closed, because I was so scared.
Really?
He was going to pull up, he was going to go down.
Well, he did pull up, obviously.
Exactly.
So yeah,
I couldn't believe it when I got back in the car and I saw that happen. But simply because Newcastle Aston Villa is 6 days away, is that right? Yeah. And it's either going to be, well, it's not going to either be, it's going to be Anthony Gordon up front, unless the manage to get Whistler through the door, but then he's not going to be match fit either. So I was just really concerned that Anthony Gordon, having looked so impressive, or at least with more energy in the first half, was then going to pull up and he'll be out for XYZ, as it was. He pulled up, and thankfully it doesn't look like a bad twisted ankle. Should be okay. First off, his performance. Second off, we'll talk about, obviously the lack of depth up top and Alexander Isak, but his performance to begin with.
His performance in the first half, I thought, was one of the standouts alongside Elanga. I liked the way he was full of running. He was dropping deep, picking the ball up, turning, wanted players around him. He was getting that as well. I thought he looks well. Look, anybody who's listened to any of my 150 episodes on this podcast will know I like going through the middle as a plan B, not obviously as the starting option. I agree. I think it's him over Sula definitely on Saturday. As you say, even if they get a striker in this week, in the next couple of days, I think it will be Gordon, fitness dependent at Villa Park. But saying that, neither him or Sula are centre forwards for a top 4 team, are they? Gordon is a winger. Asula is not ready yet. So they are just that, what I've said a minute ago. They are plan Bs. They are sort of stopgap options. But But I actually like Gordon's performance on Saturday, and it's good to see that, as you say, it looks like that knock that he picked up really late on doesn't look to be serious.
As I said, I liked what I saw from him, but the same issues for me here, same as a striker, were there. There was one moment Elanga got down the wing, and there was no one in the middle. And I know I think Gordon's spoken about it recently, how it's not natural to him, and he's learning, he's trying to train towards that goal. You know, he likes playing there, he doesn't mind playing there, but he understands it's not what comes natural to him. And that's the only issue. Plenty of running, like I say, and that's really good. He wants to be involved, but there was still that at times a vacuum in the middle, and it's no good having having Elanga down one wing, Barnes down the other, if there's no one hit in the middle. And you can ask the very best strikers who have played for Newcastle, Alan Shearer, Les Ferdinand, Mickey Quinn, Supermac, and they'll all tell you about how you have to hold the right line or hold your run. And I just think you can be a superb winger and decent through the middle, but the margins are huge. And as good as Gordon did in terms of that energy that he brought to Saturday's performance, I still left thinking that's not going to be ideal on Saturday to have him as a central striker.
No, of course it's not. And that's why, look, Eddie Howe would much prefer, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying, he'd much prefer an Alexander Isak, or he would prefer signings to have been through the door. But Newcastle are playing with the cards that have been dealt, and that means, unfortunately, at the minute, as we sit here, it's going to be Gordon, it's going to be Asula. And I think while Asula looks to have a bright future ahead of him, I don't think he's done anything in the last 5 weeks and 6 games. I mean, he's led the line in 5 of 6 games for Newcastle. And, I haven't been convinced that he's the answer through the middle at this stage of his career.
Well, every time he's looked impressive, he's come on the wing.
Yeah.
Everton, last home game of the season, the last game of the season, he came on the wing and looked really good. Sam Milner, one of the co-hosts of the podcast who isn't leaving us, did text me on Friday and was less than kind about Asula's outing. You've mentioned it there. You've not really seen too much to be impressed with over the last few weeks, and he's had the opportunities. Do you think the pressure's getting to him? I.e., we know what's happening with Isak. Unlikely to be at least involved. I mean, I don't think he's going to be here, to be totally honest, if anything goes the way Newcastle wanted to go. Do you think the pressure is getting to Asula in terms of he is the only striker they've got at the club?
Look, I don't know if it's the pressure, but I think, look, William Asula coming into the season will not for a minute have expected to have played as Newcastle United start and centre forward in 5 of their 6 games. He's playing in a position which of late has been quite unfamiliar to him. As you said, he spent the most of his Newcastle career out on the right. He is now the leading man for Newcastle, or he certainly has been this summer. So look, I don't know if the pressure was getting him. I just think he's not at that stage in his career where he's good enough, which again is no disrespect to him because I think he's a good player. I just don't think he's a leading man for a club like Newcastle United. Now, I will say Newcastle got hammered at Celtic, and I actually thought he was one of the bright sparks. He was really putting himself about. On another day, he could have scored. In that game against the K-League 11, again, he had 3 or 4 chances where on another day he would have probably scored 2 of them. Getting in good positions, great link-up play, great hold-up play. So there was some things to like across the summer, but across the balance of play on the full 5 games, Friday night included, I don't think he's even done enough to start above Gordon on Saturday. I think he's so.
He hasn't. But I just think for me, I think there is a player there, and I've been very supportive of him. He's raw, but there's ability there. My concern is 22 years of age. If you're in this position, and obviously it's easy for us to say, having not been professional footballers, but you would want your 22-year-old striker to flourish in this situation, because you go on pre-season tour and you're accepting that Alexander Isak's going to be first choice, and they're probably going to bring in a second striker, and I'll be playing third, maybe even fourth best to them, because Anthony Gordon might be the third option. As it is, he is a hand, and I've been presented it, and it just hasn't worked. And I don't know, is it an ability thing, as in it's there, but he's raw? Is it a mental thing, as it is too much for him, and that thought of actually, oh God, it's all on my shoulders kind of thing? I just think we're getting to that stage where we can't keep saying it's there, it'll come. Because I genuinely do think, and this sounds really harsh, but at 22, I mean, obviously you have late bloomers.
I
But
think you're being harsh on him. And look, 22 is so young. He played something stupid like 124 minutes, I think, of Premier League football last season, most of it on the right. I haven't looked at him in pre-season and thought he's overawed by the occasion. He's struggling with the weight of the responsibility. I just don't think he's had enough game time or had enough minutes or had enough practice in that role for Newcastle in this team. And it's pre-season as well. On top of that, it's not even like he's match fit. He's getting up to speed as well. This season is going to prove massive for him because, as you say, we don't want to go too far down the line thinking, well, when's this, big talent going to come? But he could have a big season. But the hypothetical I'll put to you is, let's say you're sat here in a month's time, and Newcastle have got Anthony Alanga and Jacob Murphy out on the right, Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon out on the left, Wissa and another striker, whether that's Isak or just two new strikers with Neve in behind. Do you loan Asula out?
But why are you keeping Neve and taking Asula out? Is the need greater?
No, what I'm saying is I'm using Neve as an example as a backup of saying, do you need Asula to go out and get game time to flourish, or do you? Because are we going to have another season of being? Is progress being stagnated because he's not getting enough game time?
But I wonder if the difficulty there is he that raw? And sometimes he reminds me of Miguel Almiron, the way he runs about the place. And I wonder if Eddie Howe looks at him and thinks he'd be better under my arm than he would be at a Bolton or a Wigan or wherever they would end up sending him to, even as abroad somewhere. I just wonder if that's what the club would think, what Eddie and Jason Tyndall might think, and want to keep him near rather than send him out for that first team experience, which is important. But it obviously in terms of a youngster's development, it's more than just about first team experience, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, by the way, Newcastle United or Eddie Howe or anybody, it's not our understanding at all that Will Asula is going to go out on loan. I think he will stay. The hypothetical I was putting is, does he need a loan? Does he need more game time, or does he need Eddie Howe's arm over the shoulder? And you think he's probably better off just staying at Newcastle?
Yeah, I think he needs that arm around the shoulder, which then will hopefully lead to more opportunities coming off the bench, cup games, but certainly a big season for him. Let me just jump into the comments before we move on. Graham says, good luck living the dream. Kevin says, all the best, Aaron, for your next ventures in life. Jody Toon for life says, is it true you're heading to a rival paper who covers Sunderland?
No, that's not true.
We now got people here talking about the games on Friday and Saturday. YI-Man says, bookmark this, Isak will be sold after the Liverpool game a few days after. Graham says the best antidote will be 2 or 3 through the door. The bounce it will give. And we've got Trio saying, I'm not confident of winning or drawing it Villa because I can't see us getting Wissa before that, and Howe won't play him even if we get him before Saturday, as he never plays players after such a short time. And we're going to talk about transfers now. Thank you for your comments. Keep them coming in if you are watching live. And we're going to talk firstly about the chase for AC Milan's Malick Thiaw, the centre-back, a man Newcastle have followed since last year, if not even a bit before, to be honest. Finally got him, German international, 24 years of age. Don't think it's a signing that particularly blows people away, Aaron, especially because he was set to join Como last month and that move didn't come off. Fell out of favour last season. New managers come in, seemingly been impressed with him, didn't want him to leave. Now he's decided, actually, I did want to go because Newcastle have come in. And I guess, given what Eddie Howe's spoken about in the last week or so and the Alexander Isak situation, it's all about players who want to play for Newcastle United. And by all accounts, this man really wants to play for Newcastle United.
Look, I think just more so than anything, it's just a little bit of positivity at a time of doom and gloom. It's a signing which we've all been praying out for. And not only is it a signing, as you say, it's a player that they've liked for a while. They've tracked him for well over 12 months. Obviously, we're linked heavily last summer before they ended up going for Marquee. A lot to like. Good age profile at 24, German international. Very, very good with the ball at his feet. I think it'll be a good signing. Again, I don't think it's one where we're sat here and thinking this is going to be a game changer. But Newcastle United needed a centre-back just as they needed a right winger, just as you could argue they needed a little fresh face at goalkeeping department. And they've got now all three, all being well,
Well, talk to us about his summer because, as I said, didn't really play towards the end of last season for Milan. Then Como came in with a bid under 30 million. That was all agreed, but it was the defender's choice not to go there. There was some links then to, I think, by Leverkusen. He's then gone into pre-season and impressed by all accounts.
Yeah, so played 21 times in the league last season. You've got to remember that AC Milan had a terrible season last year. They finished 8th. They dropped out of all European competitions. As you say, Thiaw was in and out the team. He ended the season pretty much benched for the last 7 or 8 games. As you mentioned there, he was going to go to Como. AC Milan and Como had agreed a fee, which was significantly lower than what Newcastle have had to pay by a good chunk. The player has then turned around and said, look, I don't want to go to Como. I want to try and fight for my place here under a new manager, Massimiliano Allegri, that Juventus legend. Chow arrived back for training 2 days early, pre-season training, to try and impress Allegri. He's clearly has done. He's played in all but 2 of Milan's game this summer. Allegri wanted to keep him, but Newcastle United have gone in and managed to turn AC Milan's head. So he might have been out of favour last summer, but hearing what Allegri had to say about him yesterday, he's clearly disappointed to lose the player.
And that work ethic is superb, isn't it? Knowing what he wants and knowing that he wasn't good enough last season, so coming in early to try and impress the manager, and the fact that by all accounts it's worked shows that hopefully Newcastle sign a player with the right attitude. Having his medical today, flew in on Sunday. We expect it to be confirmed within the next 24 hours, so at least Aaron will see his signing before he departs. But one of those who I think collectively, as a collective, and I keep mentioning this on the pod, I think when you add him in with the rest of the starting 11, that's where you see the improvement. He's not someone who's just going to come in himself and automatically be one of the best players in the starting 11, but you add him in with the core, and I think you do see the squad rise.
Yeah, 100%. And look, European experience on the continent, German international, good pedigree on him. Lots to like about him from the things we've seen. His style of play looks like it's very similar to Fabian Schär's in terms of he likes to get the ball out of his feet. He's very good at progressive passes. And conveniently, he is probably going to be the heir to Fabian Schär in the long term. They both play on the right-hand side of the central defensive partnership, and Thiaw has also played at right back and at defensive midfield. So again, lots of versatility there. I think there's a lot to like about the deal, and add in the fact that Eddie Howe and Newcastle have watched him for a while. They clearly know the type of player they're getting. As you say, he wants the club, which this summer is brilliant to hear. I think it ticks a lot of boxes. I think there's a lot to like about it.
How are we pronouncing his name? You've pronounced it at least twice.
I pronounced it on Friday night on this podcast, Thiaw, which I now know is not right. Chow, I think, is Malick Thiaw. Chow. Yeah,
see? If you're watching, Malick, let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments, anyone who's in the know as well. Like I say, we expect this one to be done sharpish. And look, it's shown Newcastle United actually, when things go their way, maybe when there's no rivals to players, they can move rapid in the transfer market.
Well, we had you mentioned this off air this morning. The Isak situation has taken so much of the shine off this summer, along with the fact that they've missed out on all these targets, all these fantastic players who have gone elsewhere. But if you just zoom out, Elanga through the door, they needed a right winger. Chow through the door, they need a centre back. Ramsdale in net. If they can finish the summer with maybe a striker or two and maybe a centre midfielder, I don't think the summer is going that way. I think they're doing all right, Newcastle.
Well, this is why I've been saying for the last few weeks, I'm not going to pass judgment.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, isn't it? Don't panic until September 1st, which is what we've been saying. And that quietly, if you take out all the targets they've missed, and Newcastle, by the way, will say we've actually only bid for a few of these players.
4 of them,
yeah.
I think.
Whereas, we can talk about 6 or 7, but actually a lot of them Newcastle haven't bid for. They did bid for Hugo Ekitike, they did bid for James Trafford, they did bid for Pedro and Benjamin Sesko, but they didn't bring for Cunha or Mbeumo. So a few of these players that have gone elsewhere Newcastle were never really that far advanced in signing them. I think they're quietly going about their business quite well. Get a strike or two in the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks, and maybe there's room in the budget, get a certain midfielder in, and we're talking about a really, really good window.
Yeah. I say, someone who listens to this podcast works with my wife and apparently said he's the most calm Newcastle United podcaster or fan out there. He's not losing his head. And the reason is because...
About you?
Yeah. Because we've got weeks for this to be turned around. The title of this podcast is, at least thumbnail wise, can they rescue the summer? We did one with Sam Muller, and the answer is yes, they can.
Yeah.
Obviously, it now rests on good old Alexander Isak, which throws a spanner into the works that we were not expecting.
Should we start talking about them then?
Yes, let's get into. Well, look, we expect Aaron Stokes to sign at some point because that Bournemouth chap is going to go to Brentford, and that's going to set the wheels in motion. So that we expect to happen. I think that's going to be a really good signing. They look like they've got the price down slightly as well. However, what do we do with Alexander Isak? Because everyone was waiting for Eddie Howe to answer questions on Friday. He then answered questions, which you'll tell us about in a moment, which just kind of confused a lot of people. He had to answer them again on Saturday, which he didn't really want to do. What is clear, it is a very, very delicate situation. Tell us, Aaron, first off, what Eddie Howe said on Friday about Alexander Isak and then what needed to be clarified.
Well, there was a lot that Eddie Howe said on Friday because of a 50-minute press conference inside St James's Park. I would probably say 11 or 12 minutes was spent him talking about Alexander Isak. The first thing he came out and said was, we would love for there to be a way back for Alex, but ultimately that is going to rest with him. For us, he's very much still our player, but the situation is what it is. And I have to focus on the players that are here, fit, and want to play. He then came and told us we've had discussions, him and Isak, and it's clear at the moment that we can't involve him with the group. I don't know how long that'll be for. He went on to then clarify that Isak does not have a thigh injury and that he's got no injury issues at all. He's not being kept out by injury. And then talking about the Villa game, he was asked, could Alexander Isak stay, but could he be involved in the Premier League? And Howe said, I want Alex to be playing today. I want him to be in training tomorrow. We would love the player to still be with us. So let me make that absolutely clear. There's no part of me that does not want that to be the outcome, but I do not see that changing before the Villa game, given its current situation. Now, as you've said there, I came out of that press conference and did a podcast straight away and did a full video about this is what I think Eddie Howe meant. And in the comments, people going, I've listened to this same press conference and I'm not taking it that way. We then went to St James's Park on Saturday for the second game of the weekend, and us as journalists were talking amongst ourselves saying, one journalist thought that Howe meant one thing, I thought he meant another thing. Me and you this morning have had a difference of opinion about what Howe said or meant.
So just to be clear, you think he meant Isak's refusing to train?
Yes.
I read it and listened to it as Isak's mind is not focused enough for him to be training, but I certainly didn't take it as Isak's kind of hung up his boots.
I took it very much, and Eddie Howe, we asked Eddie Howe, a journalist asked Eddie Howe to clarify this on Saturday, and Eddie Howe said, I think I was clear enough on Friday, and he said, I want Alexander Isak to be here. That is my wish. If it was up to me, Alexander Isak would be training. But at this given situation, he isn't. Which I took to take as Alexander Isak has made it clear he does not want to train or play or be part of this group at the minute until the Liverpool situation is. But this is the unbelievable thing about Eddie Howe, is he can talk for 11 minutes about Alexander Isak and he can walk this tightrope so carefully that we're all sitting here thinking, well, has he thrown the player under the bus? Has he not? Has he protected the player? Like, we don't know. And in the comment section now, when people listening will have heard Howe's quotes over the weekend, and we'll probably have 10 different variations of what they think about it. One thing is clear, and that is there is no resolution for this in sight at the minute. And Isak has really, I think, painted himself into a pretty tricky corner at the minute.
Oh, most certainly so. And I went on the Blood Red podcast, which is from the Liverpool Echo, late last week, and just put it to their reporter and to Liverpool fans to stop messing everyone around, stop wasting everyone's time. If you want Alexander Isak and you want a serious conversation, put £150 million down, and that's when the phone gets picked up. And at the moment, £110 million bid with add-ons, or will we, won't we come back? It's just a waste of everybody's time. And I don't actually think they're that serious, because they've been told that if you want Alexander Isak, which he isn't for sale, but if you want to maybe test the water, you know what the number is. Liverpool fans didn't take it very nicely. Kindly at all. They were quite insulting of me, actually, which I was hurt a little bit. But on Isak, ideally, he has to be sold. He has to go. There is no way back for Alexander Isak. I think the bridges have been burned. I think Howe, behind closed doors, will be feeling let down. I think he'll be pretty angry as well. I think he'll be fuming at the way this has gone about. And again, any Liverpool fans who've stumbled across the stream, and I think I speak, I think for most Newcastle fans, maybe I don't, let me know in the comments, I don't think anyone begrudges him wanting to go to Liverpool. I think it's the way it's been handled.
The way it's been handled. The way it's been handled is terrible. And what for the reason I've just said there, he has boxed himself into such a corner now where if that second Liverpool bid doesn't come in, or a Liverpool bid comes in and it's not up to Newcastle standing, if he does not get that move to Liverpool this month, what on earth does he do?
Grovel.
Because he has burned those bridges. And while Eddie Howe was saying, I think I've got the quote here on Howe, I might not actually, but Eddie Howe essentially is playing down diplomatic and saying he's our player, this could plan out anyway. Eddie Howe has not shut the door on Alexander Isak at all. I think Eddie Howe would welcome him back in if the situation, came to that. But for a lot of fans, they are not thinking that. They're thinking it's over, it's done, it's finished.
I said the door's slightly ajar because as much as I say they have to sell him this summer, a large part of me thinks that won't happen because I can't see them getting that second main striker in. I can see them getting Wissa in, but he's a replacement for Callum Wilson. I can't see them getting a striker in, which I think then allows you to sell. I can't actually see them getting a second striker in. Full stop, to be quite honest. I hope I'm wrong on that.
They need to, don't they?
They do, but it's whether they can. Down. Look, the last week's shown, the last few days have shown they can move quickly
when they want.
when they want. Well, when they can do, when the opportunity presents itself. But then again, it's down to Liverpool. Is their want and desire there? Are they really serious in taking Isak to Anfield? But if it doesn't come off, he has to come back in to the squad. And people say, let him rot in the reserves, let him play within the 21s. You can't do that because for many a reason, A, he's your best player, arguably. B, you're probably going to want to sell him in January or the summer after. So you need him to play well to keep that value up because otherwise someone's going to come and say, well, look, he hasn't played competitive football for 6 months. I'm not paying 150 or even probably 120. So there's all that'll roll away in the background. So if he doesn't move to Liverpool, as tough as it'll be and as awkward as it'll be, he has to be reintegrated in that sort of squad.
Well, I said on the Friday night podcast after those first Eddie Howe cuts, I said there is a way back for Alexander Isak because I was speaking essentially with my Eddie Howe head on, and I got shouted down in the comments of people saying, I can't agree with this at all. There's no way back from him. But as you say, there is, because Eddie Howe is still very much open to bringing him back. And if, as we've said, if no bid comes in or no suitors match the valuation, he is going to be a Newcastle United player, whether he likes it or not, from September onwards. So he's got to come back. Of course, there's a way back into the fold from. It's very tricky at the minute to see that happening because of where we are now. But as Eddie Howe says here, I think everything is in play. I've said many times he is contacted to us. He is our player, and the club will make the decision on his future. I don't know what that will be. Of course, I have a preferred outcome. I want the best and strongest squad possible, but I also want players that really want to play for this football club. Asked what it would take for Isak to come back into the fold, which again makes me think this is not Eddie's decision, it's Isak's. He says, that's not for me to answer. That is for Alex to answer.
So that's where you get the he's refused to train assumption from. Let us know in the comments how you read Howe's quotes, how you listened to them. Has Alexander Isak refused to train for Newcastle United, or is Eddie Howe protecting the squad by not allowing him to train for Newcastle United? That striker who comes in to replace Alexander Isak, they've been linked to Samu from Porto, reportedly quoted £80 million. He's had one prolific season in a lesser league. So for me, that's not happening. That would be a huge gamble. Can't see Newcastle United doing that. They've been linked to others. Watkins.
Jackson.
Yeah, Nicholas Jackson seems to be the one at the top of the tree, but that would leave Newcastle without Jackson and Wissa, assuming that deal happens in December/January for the African Cup of Nations. So I think that might put a stop to that one. Then you're looking at maybe Strand Larson, but will Wolves sell just a month after making him permanent?
No.
Ollie Watkins, as I've mentioned, Newcastle don't want to have two strikers pushing 30, although short term I could see that working. I don't think it'll happen though.
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
This is the thing, and this is why the Isak situation is so annoying, because if this had been done and all played out in June, Newcastle would be laughing really, because they say, right, well, we've got 2 months to really sit down and think, who can we go for? Because it's happening so late, they've missed out on Ekatike, they've missed out on Sesko, they're missing out on these players who realistically could have probably came in and been really decent alternatives to Isak. Of the ones we've mentioned, I think Watkins is probably a no-go because of the age, because obviously say him and Wissa are both 29, Wissa 29 next month. Samu looks like he's very happy at Porto. As you say, he's only been there a season. Fans seem to really like him and want him. I think of the profile, he looks like he could have a really big future. I think, as we said, the most likely of all at the minute looks like Nicholas Jackson. Fans will scream and moan about that, but I actually don't think that would be too bad for the right price, or maybe a loan.
We've had a few people in the comments saying Eddie Howe would get the best out of him.
I think there's a real player there. I think he's wasteful at times, and I think there's a temperament problem, but
he's inconsistent.
But I think there's a real player there.
But what about AFCON?
Untapped. Yeah, well, look, that is a huge issue, and as you said, it would leave them potentially without him and Wissa. So yeah, look, again, it's a big issue. It's not ideal, but yeah, or then is it going to be Isak and Wissa? There's plenty of options.
I mean, I would love Strand Larson, but I just
can't see that happening.
And there's no one else out there really when you think about it.
We spoke about, didn't we, on that episode we did where we picked like the sort of Dream 11 from one each. We both picked Strand Larson, didn't we?
I mean, there's a few names in France or Holland or Italy who have scored, quite a few in the last couple of seasons. But again, is any of them the man to replace Alexander Isak as best you can? I mean, obviously replacing Alexander Isak is just a horrendous challenge in itself. But what happens? I mean, do you see Alexander Isak still being a Newcastle United player? No. But that means you must think they're going to get a second striker in then.
Yeah, well, ideally, yes. But I think my feeling, again, maybe I'm just reading this all wrong and it's not what Eddie Howe went, but from leaving St James's Park on Friday and Saturday, I thought I'd be really, really surprised if we see Alexander Isak.
But they can't sell him again. You only get Wissa in.
No, they can't. And I think Newcastle stance very much at the minute is we're not going to sell Alexander Isak or entertain it until we have two strikers in, or at least his replacement. I just wonder whether, if Newcastle can make some progress towards the end of the window with two incomings in that position, does the £150 million stance soften? And they say to Liverpool, look, we might be ready to do this for 125,
125. Nah,
not reckon.
He's a £150 million player.
Well, at the minute, he's not really, is he? Because Newcastle have to either have a very, very unhappy player on their books, and if they decide that, then they can't sign two strikers, or they have to think, right, well, we cash in and we get his replacement. And look, still 125 million and 130 is game changing in PSR terms.
Oh, definitely. And that's another reason why I would cash in now, because he's made his feelings totally clear. And you get a boatload of money, but you need to have those two strikers in. I mean, someone in the comments there has mentioned Mateta from
another old one,
28.
Good player, though. Good record.
20 Premier League goals in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And obviously Palace have been hit by that demotion down to the Conference League. So maybe there's a few players there.
It's the age thing, though, isn't it? Yeah. I think if, as you say, we suspect Wissa is going to come in, I think that rules out a lot of old strikers from...
We have got some Liverpool fans in the comments.
Free
stumbled across us. Free Isak. Give your head a wobble, says Robbie. 130 million plus add-on. Well, yeah, if you put 130 million down in cash and you then add 20 million on in add-ons, then I'll take that more. Most certainly. We've got Dennis in want to see him cleaning the boots, which would be some punishment, but I don't think Newcastle United will do that if indeed the deal to Liverpool doesn't come off. Dan says Jackson is a decent player. People are angry about a cheap shot. Oh, apologies. We are back. A little bit of a technical issue there. We ended up leaving the studio there as I read the comments out. But let me know in the comments who you would bring in to replace Alexander Isak, and is there anyone there to replace him? Or is it about the collective and who adds up to Alexander Isak alongside you? So we talk about, like, it's definitely happening, but we still wait on that deal.
Yeah, I've just reading here a text that I got from Sam Milner, friend of the show, co-host, who said, Nicholas Jackson, total liability. He's not a fan. Chelsea replaced him with a guy who's been kept out of the Brighton team by Danny Welbeck. So it's his views on the matter.
We've got who's the other player? There was a few players that have been mentioned. The Telegraph are reporting today that Leicester City's El Khanous is on the radar of Newcastle United, a man who I've mentioned quite a few times because I think he's a very exciting player. £22.5 million release clause, attracting attention from Leeds and Spurs. Versatile, can play across the midfield, the front three. Really, is a number 10 is probably the place you would see him play out on the flank as well. That would be a good addition to Newcastle's squad.
Yeah, and crucially, a release clause of £22 million by all accounts that apparently expires reportedly in 4 days. So Newcastle might need to move quick. He's also been linked with Leeds, and he's also been linked with Tottenham. So there's interest in him there.
You literally just read out what I just said there.
Sorry. Sorry.
Just what I said. He's checked out already, ladies and gents. What I mentioned the other day to Sam, Ivan Toney. I'm really surprised that no one has tried in the summer of big striking moves.
Shall I tell you who? Well, on a similar note, I'm really surprised Mitrovic hasn't been thrown about.
I've seen that link kind of put towards, at least some Newcastle fan accounts have mentioned it.
Well, Tony's 29.
Is Tony 29?
He's 29.
Jeez.
We're getting old, aren't we? Yeah, he's 29. He scored 23 in 30 games for where is he?
We've got another name here. You continue to remember where Tony.
I can't remember which.
How old is Mitrovic?
Mitrovic is 30. So look, he's not getting any younger.
We've got Walter Mads from Stuttgart.
Yeah, Bayern Munich were. I thought they were going to sign him, but that deal fell through. I was actually at a Germany under 21 against Slovakia under 21 game on a stag do recently, and Walter Mander was playing for Germany, and he was probably the tallest man on the pitch by about a good chunk. He is huge. Looks like a bigger, better Peter Crouch.
Oh, there we go.
That's the way I could describe
When he scored a few goals in the Premier League, did Crouches, so we'll take that. A lot of people are saying go for Samu now because he'll be so much more expensive in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, youngster. There's talk of a apparent release clause in there.
68 million, I think.
I thought it was 100 million euros, so 85 million pounds.
Well, they've been quoted 80 million.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's a huge amount of money. I mean, if it was less, 50, 60 million, then maybe you would jump in on that. But I get why people are saying that, but it is still only one prolific season. I think when you spend that amount of money, you do want to see more before you cash out. But I get what people are saying, most certainly. But want to watch there on El Khanous as well from Leicester. Everton have signed Jack Grealish, linked to Newcastle.
Good signing.
Well, they've at least reached an agreement.
Loan deal. Look, it was never a deal Newcastle were going to do. It's not a player they need in a position that they want, and his wages obviously will be huge. It looks like the loan deal Everton's going to be a total of 15 million, so not cheap either. But I think for Everton, that's a very good signing. I like Grealish.
They're doing some good business, Everton.
Yeah, Moyes came out a couple of weeks ago, didn't he, and said we can't get players through the door. They obviously missed out on McAtee and they missed out on somebody else, but it does, and Diblin they've walked away from. But it does look like they're going to get Grealish and they're going to get another winger on the right. I can't remember who, but it looks like they're making some moves, Evan.
We've got Rossi and Lewis Openda, but given that Sesko's just left,
hard to see Leipzig
cashing in as well. But can he?
Is he that level as well? I think he's.
But I genuinely think this is what Newcastle United have got to do. They've got to. They're going to buy beneath Alexander Isak because it's just impossible to replace him. So you just buy two strikers who can score you goals,
do the job of one.
Yeah, but essentially that's what you need. Because how do you replace Alexander Isak?
No, exactly.
You can't. I just want to before we sign off. Did you see over the weekend a certain radio station talking about Saudi Arabia and the PIF checking out at Newcastle United. I just wanted to bring up a couple of points on that because I think the narrative's getting a little bit silly now. We had them talking about only £19 million or whatever it was, Vincent Maximum coming into the club. When you tot up all the clubs who've received transfer fees from the PIF or Saudi football, well, that's just ridiculous because Newcastle all of a sudden started getting loads of transfer fees from Saudi Arabia. Then the same people saying, no, they're not buying enough players, would then be complaining. And also, who are Newcastle United going to be happy to sell to another side? You know, they're not going to want to sell Bruno, Tonali, or Isak to Saudi Arabia. And could you imagine as well, if the PIF bought Newcastle United, bought in really good players, Newcastle started doing really well, and then said, actually, we're just going to pick 1, 2, 3 out of your squad. I mean, we'd feel so offended, and that would really cause a rift between the ownership and Newcastle United. So actually, let me get this straight. The owners are checked out because they're playing by the rules.
Well, Eddie Howe was asked about this on Friday night, and I've got the quote here. He does not believe at all that the owners are checked out. He replied to one journalist on Friday by saying the owners are very much engaged, as much as they always have been, and there's a lot going on at the football club behind the scenes that is going to take the club forward, whether that's stadium related. God, remember that? Remember when we were going to move to St James's?
New badge.
Whether that's stadium related, training ground related, these things unfortunately do take time. There's not a quick decision-making process that can fast forward any quicker than take. I'm not in control of these details, but I am part of board meetings, and there's a lot of talk about the future, and the owners are very much here. They're desperate for success and to take the club forward. This has been a challenging period where there'll be a lot of different opinions, but I can assure everybody connected with Newcastle that the owners are very much behind the project and fighting every day for the club.
There we go.
And from the horse's mouth.
If I hear another person say, why haven't Newcastle United sold their women's side? I don't know what I'm going to do. Chelsea's women's side is like the most successful in the game.
Yeah.
Villa's in the top flight, going well for a long time. Newcastle United women's has only just started to get the investment. They're signing really good players, and they're really going to make an assault to hopefully get into the top flight for next season. It would be worth pennies in comparison. It's not worth doing it right now. That's why they're not doing it, because it's not worth doing it.
Training ground sponsor, training kit sponsor, stadium sponsor. That is all more important than selling the women's team at the minute.
Exactly. And that's all out of the kind of circle of selling hotels and selling the women's side that other teams have done. I mean, what again, that was mentioned talk on the radio station. Nelly mentioned it there. But there was like, Chelsea have sold a hotel. Okay, where's the hotel for Newcastle to sell? Like people say these things.
So
honestly, it's like people say these things without the research, and it's quite clear to why these things haven't happened because they're not there to do. I mean, honestly, could you imagine if PAF came in and bought Sandro Tonali and Bruno? Like the absolute fallout would be astronomical. Or spend 25 million on Matt Target. The same people pushing that would then be complaining, wouldn't they? Goodness me. Let me just dive in the comments before we do bid farewell. Yeah, we've just got a lot of Liverpool fans unhappy at our stance on Alexander Isak. Well, sorry about that. And a lot of support for Samu from Porto. Well, what I have prepared, ladies and gents, is a video of Aaron's best bits on the podcast. So sit back and enjoy this. Let me just try and present it. 2 moments. This is what I've been doing this morning. So if you're here for transfer news and other brilliant analysis on Newcastle United, you can switch off now because it's all about Aaron's best bits over the last 3 years on the podcast. He hasn't seen this, so I hope he enjoys it. But here's to Aaron. We will be back after this video plays if you want to hang on and share your good luck messages to him, and we'll bid farewell to him one last time. But here are the best bits of Aaron on the Everything is Black and White podcast. Oh, there. Welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Musgrove, and today joined by Newcastle United editor Aaron Stokes. All being well, this will be our regular Monday show as we look back on the weekend. Welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast, live on the Chronicle NUFC Facebook page, Twitter and YouTube, and later on our podcast. Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's the Monday show with myself, Andrew Musgrove, and Aaron Stokes. I'm back, ladies and gents. I'm sure You all missed me, but with Aaron in the driving seat, I listened to the episodes and they were all right. How we doing, Aaron? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. Honestly, we've just been inundated with fan mail at Chronicle Towers, people begging and pleading for me to become the permanent host. But personally, I'd just like to say it's good to have you back in the driving seat. And I've missed you, even if the listeners might not have.
Eddie, if you are watching, hopefully I've persuaded you it's the right call. But of course, you watch them day in, day out in the training pitch, so you'll know much more than me. But do you know what? I'm looking forward to me Nando's on Monday after Jacob Murphy starts and then scores the winner. Nando's and cake.
I wouldn't hold your breath on it, but yeah, look, a better bet. I'll honor
one place, Aaron. You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. Regular listeners of this podcast will know what we talked about last week and how I said Jacob Murphy should start. He should be in place of Miguel Almiron. Aaron was not with the idea. Many of you weren't with the idea, but I had faith in Jacob Murphy. I knew Eddie Howe would be listening to me as well. He picked Jacob Murphy to start. Aaron put a Nando's on the line. Aaron lost the bet. We can't wait for Tuesday dinner time because what we're going to do tomorrow dinner time, Aaron?
Well, I'm gonna reluctantly buy you a Nando's and we're gonna eat it live on YouTube, aren't we? Just for the viewers' pleasure. But yeah, look, I'm a man of my word. I'll stick to it. A bet's a bet, and even though you won it on a technicality, I'll buy you a Nando's tomorrow.
A technicality. So just explain to the listeners and viewers what you mean by that. How did I win this bet on a technicality?
So regular listeners of the show will know that last week I was convinced that it would be Anthony Gordon. Filled in for Miguel Almiron. I thought he would play alongside Isak and Maxi. And some would say if Anthony Gordon was fit, there wouldn't have been a Jacob Murphy in the team. So you won, but did you really win? At what cost did you really win?
Well, what a chap. We'll be back after we've had our Nando's. So we're back, and that was a delicious Nando's. Thank you very much, Aaron, for going through with the bet. And thank you to Jacob Murphy. Thank you to Eddie Howe for playing Jacob Murphy.
It's not me you should be thanking, really. It's Howe and Murphy, really.
Imagine if you'd scored, it would have been cake as well.
Yeah, I think it would have been a cheaper cake. I think it would have been a Colin Caterpillar or something.
Well, I was discussing this with someone at the match on Sunday, obviously, after I knew Jacob Murphy had started. And I said, and if he scores, Our nose is a cake. When we were discussing, is it a cheesecake from Nando's? Because that would have been a very expensive meal.
No, I don't think I would have went for it. You know what it is? I've never had a Nando's cheesecake.
Cheesecakes are unbelievable.
I think I would have went Tesco special, but yeah, next time.
It's expensive. I have to say as well, look at the mess on this. Peri spice all over this lovely flag.
On the Wembley flag.
I feel like he's not cleaning up after him. Anyway, right, Nando's done. That's the last you'll hear of it, I promise. Unless he makes a stupid bet and I have to pay up for it. But we'll do that later in the season.
My podcast, it's just an hour or so after Newcastle United secured a place in the EFL Cup final. Woo! I'm glad you did. I wish we had a crowd because they'd be cheering. I can hear them outside our office singing, "Tell me more, we won't be home for tea." We won't do that. We won't, bring pain to our listeners' ears. But we are excited. I think every fan watching that game there tonight and on telly at home went through a roller coaster of emotions. But does it matter? No. Newcastle United into the first final since 1999, the first League Cup final since 1976. Aaron, we're going to talk about loads from this game, but in a sentence, just give me your initial thoughts.
It still hasn't sank in. That's my initial thoughts. It just feels like I've just left the stadium, fans singing in the streets, bars still full, people, crying on their family members' shoulders. And
did you cry?
You know what it is? I didn't cry. Obviously, I was in the press box. I had my serious journalism head on. But I think if I'd been in the crowd there as a supporter, I think I would have been blubbing at that.
I got some dust in my eye.
Down to Wembley, and if you look, he's in there. There he is. Look how happy he is.
We've got a Newcastle United editor from Chronicle Live, Aaron Stokes.
A couple of days on, how are you feeling about that result and Newcastle ultimately not bringing the cup back to Tyneside?
Probably still as gutted as I was Sunday night, to be fair. I don't think I'll be getting it over it anytime soon, but trying to stay positive, and I think, it was a very positive weekend, wasn't it? We had a fantastic time, even though the result, ended how it was. It would have just been the cherry on the cake. But, the general consensus has been that there'll be more. They won't be waiting 24 years till the next one. And I think, everybody's in agreement.
I'm fuming.
Okay.
Because it appears that the Everything is Black and White podcast mug, of which I only know of two in existence, one my father-in-law has and one was here in this office, has gone missing. It's either been smashed, stolen, maybe misplaced, but I'm fizzing.
I've got a feeling that it's tucked away in my desk.
Why would it be in your drawer?
But I can't confirm that. But I've just got a feeling I've got a couple of mugs
been
in my
using it on
drawer.
the sly?
No, but I feel like you might have given it to me last week, so I'll check that after the pod. But hopefully, it doesn't derail from what we're about to talk about from the Great North Run. But speaking of the Great North Run, tuned into last week's podcast, thinking I was going to get a really positive message from myself. We both completed the Great North Run. We've raised loads of money for charity, and instead, I just get criticised and abused for finishing 20 seconds ahead of you, despite all my training. Where was the positivity about my run?
I'm not bitter about it at all. I think the point being is that you really put some effort into that training, and I barely did anything at all, and all you could muster up was a 20-second time.
Well, I just thought, since we're such good pals and we had such a good day together Sunday, I just thought there'd be none of that. And I think if the shoe was on the other foot, I would have been very gracious about your time, which I was. But anyway.
So when you've got the richest owners in the world, why not?
Yes, it's a good point. Just to move away from the final, Ryan, I want to talk to you about when you joined the club. Obviously, a long time ago now. Swap deal with Charles and Zogbia.
Insomnia.
Yeah. Charles Insomnia, as he's known.
Surprised to see you here, Aaron.
I know, yeah, small world, isn't it?
We're not sharing rooms. He's got his own room. Don't worry about that. Very nice hotel. We've just recorded, actually, this week's Monday show. It still seems bizarre that we're saying live from Dortmund. It was a good show. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you haven't already, go to the podcast Friday to hear it. And what does the rest of the day entail for us?
Well, I feel like we're going to probably part ways at this point. We've only just had a little brief rendezvous in the hotel. I'm going to head off to the stadium to speak to Eddie Howe and Newcastle United player.
Hello and welcome to the Monday show here on the Everything is Black and White podcast. And boy, have we got a bumper edition for you today. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by Aaron Stokes, and let me set the scene. Well, in fact, you might be able to hear the scene because Aaron is currently on the banks of the canal in Milan in a lovely little cafe, having a nice bottle of Coke as he does the Monday show with me. Aaron, 27 degrees, sun is shining. My deepest sympathy to you.
Yeah, you're stuck there in the whole office and I'm here. I think, I wish I could switch roles, but I can't, so we'll just have to make it.
It's only one game. We don't want to get over excited, but it was a fantastic performance from Newcastle United. We had the e-ticket system underway at St James Park on Saturday. It seemed to go well, but obviously they've improved the signal around the ground, but I'm cursing it because I got a picture at kickoff on Saturday, my little girl dressed in an Aston Villa baby bib. I can't tell you the fury that ran through my veins.
Hang on, you're gonna have to elaborate. That can't have been your doing or Lil's doing.
Of course it wasn't my doing, but anyone that listened to the match preview in the week, I explained to John Gibson that my father-in-law is an Aston Villa fan. And he bought some Aston Villa bibs. And I tell you what, right? I left the house. I thought, I don't need to say it. I don't need to say it to my wife. Do not allow our baby to have those Aston Villa bibs put on when I'm not here. I thought, I don't need to say it. And then I got the message through. I got the photo through, and I thought, I really wish the signal
from the game.
Take it off. Yeah, I missed the opening half. I really wish that they hadn't improved the signal and you can get reception now. But as raging as I was, I'm putting down the awful decision of my father-in-law as the motivation for Eddie Howe and his squad to thump. Should Harvey Barnes start for Newcastle United?
Hang on, I'm going to have to look. Attacking options are Harvey Barnes, Alexander Isak, and Andrew Gordon. Who the fuck's that? So well as well. Hang on. Oh, fuck's sake. Right.
Should Harvey Barnes start for Newcastle United?
Well, I've had my reservations in the last couple of weeks for a couple of reasons. One, because of how well Jacob Murphy was playing in pre-season. Two, because of... Right, come on, we've got it.
Should Harvey Barnes start for Newcastle United?
Right, come on, man. Start it, because I'm gonna. Right, come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Newcastle United are off to Wembley. They've beaten Arsenal
4-0 over 2 legs in the League Cup and have secured their spot to go down to the final next month. I am Andrew Musgrove. He is Aaron Stokes. It might be 20 past 11 and just a couple of hours after Newcastle United secured their place, but we are here to bring you some reaction. And it's fair to say, Tyneside is buzzing. Those in St James's Park were buzzing. We've lost our voice. What an evening. What a night.
I think I should just start by doing something that I don't usually do on this podcast, and that's apologising to Andrew Musgrove. Because if anybody's been listening to us, as I'm sure you have for the last couple of months, Andrew has had the hotels and the trains and the plans formulated since what? Wimbledon? Forest away on pens, maybe? That is how confident you have been of Newcastle getting the final, and I've shut you down at every opportunity. So I think this is my apologies to you. They've done it.
Oh my goodness me. That's like, I was already buzzing, but I've got an apology of Aaron Stokes, essentially telling me that I was right. Do you know what? I don't know what it was. When I saw the draw against Arsenal and everybody went, oh, I just went, get the hotel book. I texted you and I said, we're going to Wembley. And you said, no, sit down. So I just had a feeling.
United have won the League Cup. 70 years of hate since the last domestic trophy. How are you feeling?
Can you do us a favour and just pinch my arm? Because it's got to be a dream. There's no way it can happen. There's no way it can be real. I don't even know what to say. I mean, you can't see this now, but there's just a sea of black and white. The fans doing laps of honour. I never ever thought I'd see this. Takeover, no takeover. I never thought we'd be in this position. And I think I'm going to cry, so I'm going to pass it back to you.
I'll try not to speak about it, because I will cry. Like, can't believe what we've seen today.
Can I just say, those boys, those boys out there, they were to a man unbelievable. One of the best performances of the season. They made Liverpool look average, and this is going to be the first of many.
The biggest thing I've taken away from that is, how did we ever survive without the studio? We've been in about 4 different offices with the most makeshift backdrops ever. Oh, thank you. That's amazing. I'll have to send us that.
That was the first time you'd seen that.
It was, yeah. And hopefully everybody in the comments has enjoyed that. If there's anybody who's been watching us since the very start, thank you very much. What's it been? 3.5 years, 150 episodes. I've loved every single one, even when they get beat. So thank you.
I've aged 10 years, apparently.
Yeah.
That's the why, man. Thank you very much for that.
David, someone's pointing out there, did you ever find that mug?
I didn't actually. No time for mug theft, says David. Why makes the point that I am going to have to put an apology out for any swearing that you heard on the Other Things Black and White podcast. Bit of a potty mouth, is the kind of phrase. And we need to retire a chair in memory of Aaron Stokes.
Oh, what? Sorry.
We need a chair.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Do you want to sum up? Do you want to do the final sign off?
Look, thank you to everybody who's listened, watched, sent us abuse over the last 3.5 years.
That's just me.
There's been Mondays where Newcastle have been beaten really heavily at the weekend, and I've said, Andrew, I hate coming on this podcast when they get beat, but actually, I'd always leave the pod afterwards thinking, I'm so glad we did that. It's been by far and away the best thing I've done since the Chronicle, one of the best things ever, and to do it with such a good friend has been amazing as well. So I'm going to miss you all, and if I don't see you again, thank you very, very much.
There we go. This has been the Everything is Black and White podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Aaron, for the final time co-host of the Monday show. I will see you in some form next Monday, hopefully victory over Aston Villa to kickstart the season. But we wish Aaron well and what's to come next. To you guys, thank you as always for the support. Keep tuning in.